Okay, today we're going to add and subtract integers.
Nate,
Yeah.
Gary emailed me the link to the YouTube video yesterday, and it didn't work. It like said that you can't use it. Try again later. And
Well, sometimes you just have to refresh.
I know I did. I shut my whole computer down and then we did it.
Okay. Well, I'll look at that.
You should just look up
So
Gary.
adding and subtracting integers. Integers are positive and negative numbers and zero. Okay? Integers are whole numbers, so they don't have fractions, they don't have decimals, they don't have anything other than whole numbers. So the integers go like this. They are the numbers that we would put on a number line. 0, 1, 2, 3, all the way up infinitely, right? Past 5 quadrillion, 6 million, 21. And they go down as well. Past negative 5 quadrillion, 6 million, 21. So they keep going to the left, they keep going to the right, but they're the whole numbers in positive and negative form, including the number 0. Those are the integers. So is 1 an integer? Is that an integer?
Yes.
Yes. How about this? Integer?
Yes.
How about this? Integer?
No.
No.
No, because that's a decimal.
So any number that isn't a decimal.
No.
No.
Is this an integer?
No.
No. Pi, right?
Yeah, pi is a decimal, so it's not a.
Well, it doesn't have a decimal the way I wrote it here, right?
3.14.
But its actual number, which goes on, starts with 3.
How about this? Is this an integer?
Mm-mm.
No, right? It's a fraction. Integers are not fractions. You could write integers as fractions, right? Like
Wait.
3 over 1 can be written as a fraction.
Okay, I get it. So an integer could be like 1,284.
Exactly. So any number that's a whole number, positive or negative. Whole numbers, just so you guys know, are just the positive versions of integers. Those are called the whole numbers. Well, positive versions plus 0. The 0 is not positive. And then, if you're curious, if you just count the whole number, I mean like the numbers above 0, just the positive numbers, those are called natural numbers, also known as counting numbers. If you think about how we start counting, how we would naturally count something, we would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are called our counting numbers. So that's what integers are, positive and negative numbers. Now what gets tricky with adding and subtracting these is they can either work together or they can work against each other. So I want to first just talk about adding integers. Adding integers. You guys have been doing this for a really long time, right? 3 plus 5, you guys know that those add up together to make 8. Negative integers can also add this way, okay? So if I had negative 3 plus negative 5, these are both negative. When you see that you have two negative numbers, sometimes this will be written like this, right? Sometimes without. Negative 3 plus negative 5. I think of this as like negative 3 and negative 5. Those also are going to add up together. negative 3 plus negative 5 is going to be negative 8. We can also think about this on a number line. So here's 0, here's negative 3. We want to add negative 5. Are we going to go left or right on our number line? We're going to go to the left because we're adding, but it's a negative number that we're adding. So we have to move to the left. We're going to move to the left 5 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this would have been negative 4, negative 5, negative 6, negative 7, negative 8. So our answer is negative 8. So you can picture this on a number line, or you can picture two negatives adding together to make a larger negative number. Right? Two negatives add together to make a larger negative number. Just like two positives add together to make a larger positive. What if they have opposite signs? So what if I have negative 3 plus 5?
Positive.
A negative plus a positive can be negative or it can be positive. It depends on one thing. Which number is bigger? So in this case, the positive number is bigger, 5. So our answer is going to be a positive number. But we have to remember, we have a positive number and we have a negative number. They work against each other. Right? So we're going to get a smaller positive number. Negative 3 plus 5 is going to give us positive 2. Let's look at that one on our number line. Okay, so negative 3, I'm right here on the number line, plus 5. I'm going to move left or right?
Right.
I'm going to move to the right because I'm adding 5 to that. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the right. I end up at positive 2. You can use a number line where you can think about, do the numbers work together? Or in other words, do they have the same sign? Or do they work apart? What's the one problem that I haven't put up here yet? We have 3 plus 5, negative 3 plus negative 5, negative 3 plus 5. The last one would be 3 plus negative 5. Right? We haven't done this problem yet. Now in this case, do these numbers work together?
Yes.
Or are they opposites?
They're opposite.
They're opposites. I have a positive 3, but I have a negative 5. They work against each other. I'm going to get a smaller number.
Negative 2.
So I'm subtracting. I'm going to get 2. And it's going to be negative because the bigger number is negative. So I have negative 2. So I start at 3 right here. I'm going to move 5 in the negative direction. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I end up at negative 2. The number line will always work for these as long as you can keep track of which direction to move. Right? So if I start at the first number, start at 3, and then I move the second number, and the sign of the second number tells me which direction to move. So negative 3 plus negative 5, I would start at negative 3 and I would move to the left 5. Negative 3 plus 5, start at negative 3, move to the right 5. Here I started at 3 and I moved to the left 5. That's how you use your number. Okay? I also think it's really helpful to think about this. If they're both positive, I get a larger positive number. If they're both negative, I get a larger negative number. If one is negative and one is positive, I subtract the numbers, and and I keep the sign of the larger number. So I keep the sign of 5 here, which is positive. I keep the sign of 5 here, which is negative. What about subtracting? I'm going to teach you a trick about subtracting. This is the secret of subtraction. Subtraction has a secret. You guys know what its secret is?
No.
It's really addition in disguise. So if I have 3 minus 5, this is really 3 plus negative.
Because you just
Subtracting is just adding a negative number. Subtracting is adding a negative number. So what is 3 minus 5?
2.
Close. It's 2, because we're finding the difference between these two numbers. The larger number is the one that has the negative sign, so it's negative 2. Okay, what if I had negative 3 minus 5? That's the same thing as negative 3 plus
Negative 2.
negative 5.
So negative.
So these numbers are working together. Negative 3 and negative 5, they're both negative. So I'm going to get a larger negative number. What am I going to get here? Negative 3 plus negative 5. That adds up to negative 8. Make sure all of this is going into your spiral notebook. Okay? All of these examples. I should be taking notes on all of this. Okay, what if I had negative 3 plus, getting subtracted, minus negative 5. Okay. There's a couple ways we can think about this. The simplest way is if I'm ever subtracting a negative number, watch what happens. Minus a negative becomes plus. Okay. In your notes, I want you to write it like this. Minus negative 5 equals negative 3. And I want you to do it like this. Minus negative 5, and then turn that into a plus symbol. So that you remember. So negative 3 minus negative 5 is negative 3 plus 5. This exists, this thing, a double negative, it exists in a lot of your classes. In English, you'll talk about double negatives. Right? It's like, I ain't gonna do no homework. That means that you're going to do your homework. Right? Because you said I ain't, which means I'm not going to do no homework. The double negative in English makes a positive.
So if we
A
told,
double negative in math makes a positive.
So we can go into the next class and the teachers will know what we mean by saying.
If you say a double negative in English, Joseph will know exactly what you're talking about. Okay, so what is negative 3 plus 5? Or negative 3 minus negative 5? What is this? Start at negative 3, and I add 5. Are these numbers working together, or are they different?
Different.
Yeah, one is negative, one is positive in the end.
2.
Even though it looked negative over here, right? So we know that we're going to get 2. Is it going to be positive or negative 2?
Positive.
Positive because
Because
The
the 5 is bigger.
bigger number is positive. Yeah. What if I had negative, keep doing this one. 3 minus negative 5 equals. What does this equal? 3 minus negative 5 is the same thing as 3
Plus negative 5. No?
close Remember, the minus a negative becomes a
Positive.
plus.
Plus.
Minus a negative becomes a plus. Right? We could write parentheses around these if we wanted to. And then change them here. So 3 plus 5 is, these have been doing this for years.
A.
8. 3 plus 5 is 8. Okay. Let's do some examples. What if I had 7 plus negative 2? Anyone think of another way of thinking about 7 plus negative 2?
7 times.
I can't change plus to times. That would totally change it. What is plus a negative? What do we say? That's the secret of
Addition.
subtraction.
Subtraction.
Plus a negative is the secret of subtraction. So 7 plus negative 2 is the same thing as 7 minus 2.
So it's 5. And it's positive.
So it's a positive 5. Yeah. Okay. Make sure all these examples go through your notes. So when you do your homework tonight, I want you to have lots to look back to and compare the problems on the homework to problems we did in class. All right, what if I had 18 and minus 21? These numbers are getting a little big to use our number line, right? And so when you get bigger numbers, you really want to try to use this strategy of looking at the two numbers and saying, first, do these have the same sign or do they have different signs?
Negative 3.
Do these have the same sign or do they have different signs?
Yeah.
We have to remember that
18
minus
positive.
actually means plus a negative. So this is a negative 21. This is a positive. So they're working against each other. Right? So I have 18 minus 21. I'm going to find the difference between those numbers, which is 3.
Negative.
Now I'm going to look at these. Which one is bigger, the positive or the negative?
The negative.
The negative is bigger, so my answer is negative. Alright, I'm going to give you some steps that you can follow if you get stuck. Step 1. Turn all subtraction into adding a negative. Let's just do an example of step 1. If I have 5 minus 7, that's the same thing as 5 plus negative 7. Okay? Step 1. Step 2. Turn all double negatives into positives. Here's an example of that. If I had 3 plus negative negative 7, that's the same thing as 3 plus 7. A negative negative. Here's another example, except if you've already turned this into addition, this wouldn't happen. 4 minus negative 8 is the same thing as 4 plus 8. Okay? That's what I mean by step 2. In your notes, what you might do is write the steps off to the left and then write the examples to the right next to them. I just don't have any room over here. And actually, yeah, I'm like barely on the camera right now. Alright, step 3. Step 3, you have to figure something out. Okay? You have to figure out if both numbers should really say if each number is positive. Each number is positive or negative. So in this example, let's look here. Is 5 positive or negative?
Positive.
Positive. Is 7 positive or negative?
Negative.
Okay. In this example, is 3 positive or negative?
Positive.
Is 7 positive or negative?
Positive.
Is 4 positive or negative?
Positive.
Is 8
Positive.
positive? Okay. So we figure out if each number is positive or negative. This is where we need to diverge. Okay? So step 4 depends on your answer to step 3. Step 4. If the numbers are the same, so they're both positive or, both positive or both negative, what are you going to do if they're both positive or they're both negative?
They're both positive.
You add just the numbers. We're ignoring, for a second, in step 4, we're ignoring the negative signs. Okay? It's going to be a little confusing to write it here. That's why I'm putting it in parentheses. We're remembering if they're both positive or negative. But then when we add the numbers, we're ignoring those negatives.
And then
Okay?
you put it at the end.
If they're different, so in other words, one is negative and one is positive, I'm going to subtract the numbers. Again, I'm ignoring whether one is negative when I subtract. So let's take a look at this problem. 3 minus 8. Step 1, turn all subtraction into adding a negative. 3 plus negative 8. Step 2, turn all double negatives into positives. Do I have any double negatives?
No.
No. Step 3, figure out if each number is positive or negative. Okay, this number is negative, this number is positive. Step 4, are these the same or different?
Different.
They're different, so I subtract the numbers. What is 3 minus 8? What is 8 minus 3? What is the difference between 3 and 8?
5.
5 is the difference. You guys understand that 5 is the difference?
Yes.
It's the number between 3 and 8. There's 5 between them on the number line. 5. I'm not quite done. Step 5.
Is it negative or positive?
Yeah. We're going to now put the negatives back in. If
Negative.
the numbers were the same, right? If both were negative, the answer is negative. In this case, we didn't have the same numbers. If the numbers were different, then if the larger number is negative, your answer is negative. Now this, when I say the larger number, I mean just like the absolute value of that number. So negative 5 compared to 3, I'm saying that 5 is the larger number. Okay? So let's look at this example. Step 5. If the larger number is negative, my answer is negative. Is my larger number negative? 3
Yes.
plus negative 8?
Yes.
Yeah, 8 is my larger number. That's the one that had the negative sign in front of
It's
it.
negative
So my answer is negative 5. Okay. If you follow the set of steps, it will always work. Okay? This will get you through any problem. But it's also important to remember that there are many, many ways of thinking about these types of problems. We can think about them on the number line, right? And then the one that we haven't talked about in the video today is we could talk about it as money. Let's say I had negative 4 plus 7. Instead of saying negative, this is just another way of thinking about this. I can say I owe $4.
And I have 7.
I get $7. I will have
3.
$3 left over after I pay my debt. Okay? Let's say I have $8, but I owe $6. I'm going to have $2 left over.
Left.
Thank you.
Let's say I owe $10, and then I owe someone else $20. Means I owe a total of $30. So we can think of the negative sign as meaning owe. And for some people, that's a helpful way of thinking about it too. So use the strategies that work, but if you get stuck, try just going back to these steps and following them one at a time. Let's do one more example following these steps. Okay. Negative 10 minus negative 7. Okay. Step 1. Turn all subtraction into adding a negative. Negative 10 plus negative, and then I have another negative here, negative 7. So I turned this into this, and I put a plus sign. Turn my subtraction into a negative. Step 2, turn all double negatives into positives. Here's a double negative. That becomes a positive 7. I could rewrite this as negative 10 plus 7, because I don't have to write positive 7. Step 3, figure out if each number is positive or negative. Let's see. This is negative, this is positive. Step 4, am I going to go on the same side or the different side?
Different.
Yeah, these are different, right? This is negative 10, this is positive 7. So if they're different, I subtract the numbers. What's the difference between 10 and 7?
3.
3. Step 5, remember I'm on this side. If the larger number is negative, the answer is negative. Is my larger number negative?
Yes. So it's negative.
So my answer is negative. You guys have questions at any phase of that? Okay, make sure all of these steps are written very clearly in your notes, along with all the examples that we put on the board.